What's the greatest movie behind the scenes fact you know? While looking for a tattered coat for the character playing the wizard in The Wizard of Oz, a costumer stand bought one from a second-hand store. When the actor put the coat on, he turned the pocket inside out. Written in the pocket was the name L. Frank Baum, who is the author of the Wizard of Oz books. Baum's widow later identified the coat as actually having belonged to her husband. This is the kind of shit that gives me goosebumps. Like, what are the chances? Amazing. The actors of Saving Private Ryan were put through basic training before filming. Except Matt Damon, so that the other actors would build some sort of unconscious resentment towards his character. And the man who put them through the training? None other than USMC retired Captain Dale Dye. Dye had a small on-screen role in Saving Private Ryan, alongside Bryan Cranston, and played Colonel Robert Zink in Band of Brothers. Dye put the Bob actors through boot camp as well. You can see snippets of it in the Ron Livingston's Video Diaries featurette. Edit, added link. While filming Guardians of the Galaxy, they had to do several takes of some scenes because Chris Pratt kept making the pew pew sounds when he fired his ray gun. Didn't this happen with Ewan McGregor on The Phantom Menace too? He made the lightsaber sounds during practice and couldn't stop because he used to do it that way when he played with lightsabers as a child. Fight Club was filmed in chronological order. And throughout the filming, Edward Norton put himself on a near starvation diet and avoided the sun, while Brad Pitt spent a lot of time at the gym and in tanning salons. The end result is we see Tyler Durden getting stronger and healthier while the narrator withers away. Every time one of these AskReddit questions comes along, there's always a fact about Fight Club, and it's always one I haven't heard of yet. Damn. What a great movie. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, the snakes, being cold-blooded, went towards the thrown torch, causing the director to complain at the snakes. "You're ruining my movie." In Life of Brian, the line after "yes, we're all individuals, I'm not" was ad-libbed, bumping the extra up in pay for now having a distinct speaking role. In the flower shop scene in The Room, when Johnny says "oh hi, doggy," that was a genuine reaction. He didn't realize that the dog was, in his own words, a real thing. In Anchorman, during the Six Panther scene, Paul Rudd was determined to make Will Ferrell laugh and break character since it was always the other way around. He thought that this would be accomplished with the 60% of the time it works every time line. Will fired back with that "doesn't even make sense" line without skipping a beat, once again making Paul Others break character yet again. That's because Will Ferrell doesn't play characters, he just plays himself. Duck the Habs. On the set of The Blues Brothers, they had to get John Belushi to go and tell Carrie Fisher she was doing too much coke. That movie had a coke budget. Like a regular department budget, coke gets its own budget. Amazing. Every movie made in the 80s had a coke budget. In The Shawshank Redemption, there's a scene where a guy feeds a maggot to a crow. The American Humane Association made them find a maggot that had died of natural causes to feed to the crow. They wouldn't have given the "no animals were harmed" in the making of this film at the end if they hadn't. While filming Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Bella, the Neapolitan Mastiff that played Fang, got very protective of Daniel Radcliffe and would jump in front of him whenever the animatronic spider for Aragog would come out to defend him, resulting in then having to refilm the scene multiple times. During the filming of The Lord of the Rings, Christopher Lee corrected Peter Jackson on the sound of being stabbed in the back. From the DVD commentary, as a director would, I was explaining to him what he should do, and he says, "Peter, have you ever heard the sound a man makes when he's stabbed in the back?" And I said, no, and he says, "Well, I have, and I know what to do." He had been involved in some super secret operations for the British during WWII, which is presumably where he knew that from. Christopher Lee was also the only cast and crew member to have actually met Tolkien. Tolkien even promised Lee the role as Gandalf should they ever make a movie. In Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, when Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas are approaching the pile of smoldering and dismembered corpses looking for Pippin and Merry. Viggo Mortensen kicks a helmeted orc head and screams, thinking the hobbits are dead and gone. It's a really good scream and 100% authentic. When Mortensen kicked the head helmet, he broke 2 of his toes. He used the pain and stayed in character. They kept the scene for the movie. He's super cool. He also declined a position in The Hobbit because his character wasn't in the books. He really is. He busted a tooth once during a scene and he was like, no, just get some glue, let's keep going. And Jackson had to stop production and send him to a dentist over his wishes. I think it was in The Shining. The kid didn't know they were making a horror movie. He's a professor now. He hates when people bring it up. One of my friends had a class with Peter Weller, the original RoboCop. One of the first things he said in the first lecture was, "Yes, I played RoboCop. You guys have 15 minutes to ask whatever you want. After that, no more movie questions." 3 people were struck by lightning during the filming of The Passion of the Christ. In Goodfellas, the spaghetti they're eating was cooked by Scorsese's mother. Mom's spaghetti? While filming Total Recall, Schwarzenegger noticed the Michael Ironside was constantly on the phone between takes. When he broached the subject with Ironside, he was told that he was phoning his sister and that she was currently suffering from cancer. Arnold immediately brought Michael to his trailer and they had an hour-long 3-way conversation with the sister about what exercises to do and what kinds of food she should be eating and really lifting her spirits. Ironside has never forgotten Schwarzenegger's kindness and neither has his sister. In Alien Resurrection, Sigourney Weaver really did make that no-look, over-the-shoulder basketball shot. Ron Perlman almost blew the take because he was so surprised. Apparently the scientists for Interstellar did so much theoretical physics to get the wormhole and black hole effects right that their work is going to be published into a scientific paper. Can't find a source on that right now though. One of the producers was Kip Thorne, a physicist who is one of the leading experts on general relativity, and black holes in particular. He worked with the VFX teams to make sure the effects shots actually behave the laws of physics. When Indeed Wire shows up at Anne's house naked in Parks and Rec, Chris Pratt is actually nude. That is Amy Poehler's actual reaction. Similarly, in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, Jason Segel, when breaking up with Kristen Bell, was actually completely naked the whole time, even though the plan from the beginning was to have the shot cut off above his waist. In Scrubs, the janitor almost never read his script and just improvised his role. Bill Lawrence actually said that in the scripts. He had whatever Neil says on his lines. Edit, changed whatever janitor says to whatever Neil says. In A Knight's Tale, the scene where Mark Addy says yay I because the audience gives no reaction to Chaucer was improvised by Addy because the extras didn't speak English, they were Eastern Europeans, and had no idea when to chirp. In Hitchcock's Rope, which is composed of just a few very long takes, the Dolichum, which is extremely heavy and on rails, ran over a crew member's foot, breaking it. This was pretty deep into a good take from what I recall. So another stagehand just covered his mouth and dragged him off set rather than let his screams of pain ruin a lot of work. One of my favorites is from Predator. Jesse Ventura was delighted to find out from the wardrobe department that his arms were one bigger than Arnold Schwarzenegger's. He suggested to Schwarzenegger that they measure arms, with the winner getting a bottle of champagne. Ventura lost because Schwarzenegger had told the wardrobe department to tell Ventura that his arms were bigger. There are a ton of great ones from the movie. Apparently Ronald Reagan was amused by Doc Brown's disbelief that an actor like him could become president. So much so that he had the projectionist stop and replay the scene. He also seemed to enjoy it so much that he even made a direct reference of the film in his 1986 State of the Union address, as they said in the film Back to the Future. Where we're going, we don't need roads. Apparently they wanted him to play the mayor in the third film but his people wouldn't allow it. In their defense, they probably knew he couldn't remember his lines anymore. I like the one about Raiders of the Lost Ark where Indy shoots the sword fighter. He was supposed to fight him in a shoot that would have taken 3 days. However, Ford was really sick from dysentery and so convinced Spielberg to do it this way. Spoiler alert, in Back to the Future, Marty's family is very wealthy, or at least much wealthier, at the end in the new time. Crispin Glover, who played George McFly, disagreed with the morality of the ending and contested it, because he was contractually obligated to finish the film. However, he did not, though, appear in either of the sequels. To remedy this, Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, co-creators, put in a look-alike wearing huge sunglasses, and used footage from the first movie to make it appear as though Glover was in the sequels. Upon seeing this, Glover sued the two. And now there are stricter regulations about this sort of thing. It wasn't just a look-alike and glasses. They actually made prosthetics of Crispin Glover's face that they had the new actor wear. At the time The Dark Knight was filmed, there were 4 IMAX cameras in the world. During the chase scene in the tunnel with the 18-wheeler, they smashed one between 2 trucks and lost all the footage. Edit: the footage wasn't lost, it turns out. The Joker would have liked that. Don't know if it's that great, but it's my favorite. In The Dark Knight, whenever the Joker is leaving the hospital as it explodes and then pauses to fiddle with the detonator when the explosions stop. That wasn't supposed to happen, and Heath Ledger fiddling with the detonator was ad-libbed, and Nolan decided to keep rolling and include it in the film. He also wasn't supposed to look back. The whole look back and get startled almost ruined the shot entirely, as they only had 1 take for the explosion. Nolan mentions this in an interview about how surprised he was by the performance of Ledger. In Django Unchained, when DiCaprio finally snaps and starts slamming on the table, his hand starts to bleed profusely. The blood was real because he shattered a glass when he slammed his hand down. But he kept going with it. I like to think it's still his blood when he rubs it all over Broomhilda's face. But I really doubt it. There are so many subtle things I like about that movie. Dr. Schultz is a former dentist who now hunts down men named Brittle and Candy. Also, DiCaprio blows smoke through his nostrils when he smokes to resemble the dragon from the story Dr. Schultz told Django. That just made the film 100x better. When Back to the Future was released, Calvin Klein was a relatively obscure brand outside of the US. If you switch your DVD to French, Lorraine calls Marty Pierre for most of the movie, after seeing Pierre Cardin printed on his shorts. The big reveal that Darth Vader is Luke's father was a crazily guarded secret. Even the actor who played Vader didn't know. As most people know, Vader's body was played by David Prowse, and his voice was James Earl Jones. During filming though, Prowse did say his lines. During that scene, what he actually says is "Obi-Wan killed your father." Hamill was only told moments before what the actual line was going to wind up being, and none of the other actors knew. No one knew except Lucas, the director, and some producers. It kind of makes sense when you think of the way Mark Hamill delivered the line, "He told me you killed him." During the filming of The Princess Bride, Mandy Patinkin's Inigo Montoya father died from cancer. When he came back from the funeral, they had to shoot the scene where he killed the 6-fingered man. It gives him a special fire in his eyes when he says, "I want my father back. You son of a rick." In The Emperor's New Groove, I think I have this right. Remember the bit where Patrick Kronk Warburton is trying to hide Cusco's body and doing this off-key singing? According to the director, Warburton, while a funny man, can't sing at all, and his tone-deaf noise making is not an act. Even better, it was improvised, and thus, technically, he was the composer of the music. And, as the composer, Disney's lawyers insisted that he sell them the rights to the music. The irony of this was not lost on anyone. The movie Wayne's World was filmed in less than a month, because the equipment was all borrowed from someone else. Also, Dana Covey actually didn't know the lyrics to the Bohemian Rhapsody. He just mouthed along as the scene was shot. Production of Castaway was shut down for a year so Tom Hanks could lose the required weight. Instead of just sitting around waiting, director Robert Zemeckis and his crew used the hiatus to make What Lies Beneath. In Psycho, Hitchcock got the idea for the blood swirling in the bottom of the shower drain from watching someone stir chocolate syrup in milk and how smooth the swirling looked. In the actual shower scene they ended up using chocolate syrup to recreate that look. In Avengers, Robert Downey Jr. would hide food around the sets and eat them while filming. The crew would attempt to find his stashes but never did. All those times he was eating on screen were unscripted. I forgot the source to this. Sorry. In Friday, a lot of scenes got ruined because of the crew on the set kept bursting out laughing during Chris Tucker scenes. So they had to film Chris Tucker scenes with no crew on set. In the original Alien, none of the actors knew what was going to happen in the chest burst scene. Their actions are all genuine. During the filming of Tron, Jeff Bridges produced too much of a bulge in the crotch area in his computer outfit, so he was forced to wear a dance belt to conceal it. Something went wrong during the production of Toy Story 2 and the whole movie was almost deleted. In Apollo 13, they filmed in NASA's Vomit Comet, a plane that flew at high altitudes and would create parabola movements to simulate a short period of low gravity. They built the Apollo spacecraft set inside the plane and almost every scene featuring zero gravity was filmed in the plane. They flew over 500 times in the parabola. From the time that low gravity simulation would start, they would only have 23 seconds to unstrap from restraints, set up a shot, roll, and then strap back in. They completed all of these flights in 13 days. The most underrated movie fact of all time. The only movie ever to film in actual zero gravity. Edit, changed zero gravity to low gravity, as that's the scientifically correct term. Also they weren't actually in low gravity but instead in a simulation. Like a roller coaster. When you first go over the hill, feel weightless, but in reality are not. A couple of Disney ones. In The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Kevin Kline, who plays Phoebus, waved a plastic prop sword around while doing his lines. They had to hang the microphone higher because he kept hitting it. Also in Hunt, the animators gave Frollo's horse a name, Snowball. Pick for reference. In Hercules, Hades was originally intended to be a lot more like Frollo or Jafar, calm, slow talking, elegant, refined, etc. But James Woods read the dialogue as if he was a used car salesman in his audition and wound up getting the role. In an alternate ending of The Nightmare Before Christmas, it was revealed that Oogie Boogie was a giant puppet being manipulated by Dr. Finkelstein. In The Princess and the Frog, the voice actress playing Tiana is left-handed and insisted that Tiana also be left-handed. During the shoot of The Shining, Stanley Kubrick actually scared Wendy to the point that, in the scene where she gets slowly chased up the stairs by Jack while trying to defend herself with a baseball bat, she was actually terrified. BTW, it was Stanley Kubrick who chased her up the stairs. Also they had to reinforce the door that Jack Nicholson breaks down as he was actually a firefighter and was demolishing it far too quickly. District 9 was almost completely unscripted. They had the story plotted out, but when it came to shooting scenes, they would just sort of wing it. Sharlto Copley, the star, had never really acted before. He was a TV producer who Neil Blomkamp worked for as a teenager. During filming of The Godfather, Marlon Brando stayed in character a lot but was still a prankster on set. In one scene characters are supposed to pick up bags from a car. So Brando put a bunch of weights in them and didn't tell anyone until they were struggling to pick them up on camera. Brad Pitt apparently is too. During the filming of Moneyball, Jonah Hill liked to ride a special golf cart around set, so Pitt stole it one day and had it painted pink. Jonah loves Wham! Written on the windshield with a little picture of them photoshopped onto a pic of Wham and rigged the radio to blast "Wake Me Up Before You Go Go." Edit, founder, photo, of the cart. Darth Vader sounded dorky without the effects. The sound of his breathing was created by Ben Burt, the sound designer of Darth Vader, by breathing into a scuba regulator. The sound of a lightsaber was that of an idle projector, and the blaster effect was created by hitting a guy wire on a radio tower with a hammer. Bruce Lee's son Brandon Lee's accidental death. During the shooting of The Crow in 1993, there was a scene where Lee was supposed to be shot from 15 feet distance with a revolver filled with blank rounds. The guy in charge messed up and didn't empty barrel which was loaded with a bullet, which even was supposed to be not fatal. But someone messed up there too. When shot, he was fatally wounded and ended up dead. Interestingly, his father had died 20 years back in mysterious circumstances too. The only thing in the chocolate room that wasn't edible was the teacup Wonka eats. That was wax. Gene Wilder still ate it for the shot. The chocolate river was made of water, cocoa and shampoo, so it would foam right. But it's also only a foot deep. They had to dig a hole where Augustus falls in and hope he doesn't break his neck. And it took 15 takes to get the Oompa Loompas to roll Violet out the door. Only 2 of them spoke English. And Violet was wider than they are tall. They kept rolling her head into the metal door frame. The one you've heard is that Gene Wilder planned the little stumble assault when he arrives. But he also didn't tell anyone about the hallucination scene. The kids actually thought he went mad, since their scripts didn't include the scene.